Welcome to another episode of the 1937 Capehart 405E restoration. Okay, we have almost everything put back together in the cabinet. All that is left is to finish, or actually start and finish, the Capehart 16E changer. So before us we have the changer up on the bench. We've already done a little bit of work here, but the gearing and the mechanism here in the middle we still have to service, so we'll kind of go down the line here. So we've already finished the magazine. It sits on a pivot with the flip arm. That has all been polished, cleaned, replaced felt as well. We have the main changer assembly here. It still remains untouched as of this video. We have hardened grease and oil throughout the mechanism, which is no good and will have to be degreased and regreased. You can kind of see there, as well as our cam gear. It's all solidified and dried. So we will have to go through the entire underside of the mechanism. Here is the capacitor. Each 16E has a capacitor in it. This is dated November 23rd, 1936. This is most likely an early production 1937 machine, which was started its selling year in late 1936. Here is the record lift ring that has been polished, cleaned, and brand new felt installed. We also have new cushions that have been made up. Those will be installed after the changer is finished. And replace the felt here on the backing, which acts kind of like a record guide on the mechanism. So that is the changer pre-restoration, and it is the finest changer, the finest automatic changer made before World War II. There never was anything quite like it, even after the war years. A couple interesting contenders like the Lincoln changer, some other systems, but the 16E changer was quite intricate and a mechanical marvel. Okay, so when we get back, we will have an update here on the degreasing, and then we will re-grease and oil, and should be ready to put back in the cabinet. Okay, here's the end result of the 1937 Capehart 16E changer servicing. So everything's been degreased, cleaned, and re-greased. We also applied oil to all of our oil light bushings in various areas that required it. You can see our large cam drive, series of sprockets, sliding gears, the whole works. This is one mechanical marvel for the 1930s. One of the finest changing record mechanism machines to be made in the 1930s. So, kind of starting at the bottom, we've cleaned all of our shafts and gear sets. All of our sprockets received extreme pressure grease, as well as our sliding surfaces, which we have here on one side of the cam facing. There's some more gearing that we've cleaned and lubricated. On the other side of this, underneath here, sits the turntable spindle. This is the worm gear that drives that. When it's disengaged, it moves freely as such. When it's engaged, the teeth will clamp and it'll go through a cycle. What engages that is this solenoid right here. So all cleaned up and lubricated. Here on the other side, we replaced the cam facing for this cam. This is leather. These always go bad, so that's been fully replaced and redone. We lubricated everything on that side as well. So with that concluded, let's go ahead and get in the test stand and see how it performs. Okay, we have the completed 16E record changer now in the test stand. This test stand was created custom made by a good friend who also collects Capeharts, and he gifted this to me a couple years ago, and it's an excellent stand. I use it for all my testing for others, including myself. So the 16E changer, fully cleaned, polished, the whole work's completed. You can see how beautiful and gleaming it looks compared to before when I first received it in video number 1. So we have completely cleaned the underside, re-greased, oil, got rid of all the old grease, all the old oil. Someone had made tons of misadjustments decades ago. It was before the previous owner. Sadly, everything was out of whack. Pretty bad. So we spent probably about 4 days just on the calibration and alignment. And before that, we had to get deeper into the mechanism, which has now been completed. So this is the earlier black style Capehart 16E changer with the magnetic head. This is the last year for this style head, 1937, 1938. They went to a Bakelite head, which is smaller and lighter. Right now we have about 15 records mixed, loaded up. That's mixed 10 and 12 inch 78 RPM records. They're all pre-war records. It's highly advisable to use pre-war records only on these 16E changers. That's what they were meant for. They were made for that. That was the era that of the technology. You can use post-war records, but due to the heavy weight of the pickup and the lesson, volume of shellac used in post-war records, they will be eaten up pretty quickly with stylus pressure. So I highly recommend all pre-war standard records that are shellac based, as they are tougher, stronger, and can tolerate the heavy weights of the head shell. So with that said, we have made our adjustments to the head shell, the tone arm, the throw out lever, the magazine, the reversing arm, the camshaft gearing underneath, as well as all the leather facings have been serviced. The turntable now has a piece of plastic on the surface, and that was a revision that Capehart sent out to dealers in the mid-1930s as records were getting caught on the felt. So we went ahead and installed that, so the owner of this machine will never have to worry about that possibility of happening. If it does get hung up on the felt, it will jam the changer and likely break the record. So the added piece of plastic, which has been perfectly cut for the center, was added and now part of this machine. So all the chrome surfaces have been polished and cleaned. All the painted surfaces have been cleaned and oiled. And now we're going to show a demonstration of the completed result. So we have a 12 inch 78 RPM record spinning right now. Over here on the left is our 3-position lever. On the far left we have repeat. In the center is one side, and then to the right is both sides. One thing that's very important is that this lever never be touched in the middle of a cycle. You have to wait for the cycle to complete, for the tone arm to set down on the record. Then you can manipulate this lever. If you do it while it's in a cycle, you're going to destroy stuff, and it's not going to be good. So first up, we're going to leave it in the both position here. Let's go ahead and see how this thing cycles. We're going to manually engage the clutch, because traditionally it is electrically charged solenoid that would engage the clutch when you hit the reject button. Since we have nothing electrically hooked up minus the motor which is powering this, we're going to manually engage the clutch there to activate the mechanism. So here we go. This is for both sides. As the record comes up on the reversing arm, or the flip arm as I like to call it. It flips the record and brings it back down on the tray, or what I call the lift ring. And then it sets down the record on the leading edge. That's important. According to the manual, the distance from the edge of the record to where the first groove traditionally would start is about 5/32 of an inch. And some records, mainly those that are not standard, have their first grooves closer to the edge of the record versus in this situation with these Victors 5/32 an inch from the non-playable surface to the first groove. You need that because that's your lead in, that's your set down for the head shell. So it's imperative to make sure you watch what type of records you're using on this machine, because if the grooves are further out to the leading edge, you're going to miss part of the song. But as stated by the manual, this is set up to have a set down of 5/32 of an inch inside the outside of the record. So it starts right on the first groove almost every time, and you miss no parts of the song. So let's go ahead and send it through another cycle here on both sides. And once it flips the record, the mechanism through the gearing and timing knows to go on to the next record, which is what we're doing right now. Okay, there's another record. Let's go ahead and send it through one more of both sides. Marvelous changer. Nothing quite like it ever made again. 1930s was the heyday for this baby, and it is a mechanical marvel. Okay, we're going to now go on to one side. And what this will do is basically just send off the next record every time. So we'll go through one record on the stack at a time now. The reversing or flip arm will no longer be utilized. So when I flip this switch over here to the one side, it disengages a certain cam underneath the mechanism, which sits on a roller, and it has disengaged the reversing arm, as you'll see now. And there's a knife edge finger in the back that separates the records from the stack on the magazine and sends the next record down the magazine onto the record tray, as you just saw there. This is a 10-inch 78, so it too sits down in the proper position, 5/32 from the edge of the record, and that is controlled, the set down is controlled by what's called the throwout arm, which is right here. Very tedious adjustment, and it takes a couple times to get it exactly right. Like I said, everything on this changer is mechanical. The only electronics are the automatic trip function, which we will demonstrate once we have everything back in the cabinet. Right now, the only power going to the mechanism is through the motor, which is the power is transmitted through a drive shaft up to the 16E. So all purely mechanical by design and operation. Okay, we'll do one more on one side. That's a Brunswick record we just played, a silver and black label, which is likely circa 1936 or 37, which is about the same time period that this changer was manufactured. Perfect every time. And those are the results you get when you take your time, you do everything by the book, and you skip no detail. And that's something that I can always guarantee, is every item will be serviced. Nothing is overlooked. It is a complicated process, and in a way it's an art. If you don't know what you're doing, you can really muck things up. So we're going to go ahead and show repeat When it's in repeat mode, everything is disengaged on the mechanism, and the record lift ring will not move now. So let's go ahead and send it through repeat. Basically, we're just repeating the same song over and over. So back then, when this thing was produced new, if there's a record you really liked and you want to listen to it more than once, you're welcome to. So it looks like it's almost ready to go into a cycle, but it really isn't. The magazine is always engaged there on the cam drive, so that's why it moves. And that is basically the complete, correct operation of a 1937 Capehart 16E record changer. Most all the black changers are identical, and honestly, even the brown changers that were started production in 1938, those are very similar. But some of the adjustments are a little different on the tone arm and also on where the head shell sits, because the head shell is different in later years. So that's the operation of the 16E record changer for this restoration, completely gone through and reworked. But before we close out the video, let's go ahead and check out the underside. We want to show all the gearing in operation. Okay, here's the underside of the 16E record changer. You can see we have all of our sets of gearing, cam drives, everything. It's rather complex. Down here we have our drive shaft, which does go with the cabinet, but the motor and transmission are of a later variation, and they're probably 1940 or after. So I have a couple of these in stock, these motors, and I just wanted to test one, I suppose. Okay, so right now we're still in repeat. Let's go ahead and watch this drive move as we move it to both sides. Okay, that's in both sides. Let's go ahead and manually trip. We'll watch the gearing as it moves around the track. The cam moving around the rollers. Okay, we're going to go ahead and show it from this right side over here once again. This side of the mechanism is the lift arm. We also have the lift cam, the leather facing for the tone arm to be thrown back over to play the record. So there you have it, quite interesting. Do one more cycle here. There you have it. That's the 16E fully serviced. Stay tuned for more.